Very nice.
I love
Very
Craig.
nice. Craig's the best, isn't he?
Now recording.
All right. Well, welcome back, everyone who's listening. I'm Eric here with the boys, Isaac, Joe.
Hello.
Joe.
Fantastic. This week we're going to talk about traps. Application of traps is what I'm interested in, how to apply it to in a way that doesn't crush progress in the game. How do you steer your characters? We can talk about the rules a little bit. You probably have you're the best with rules, Isaac, but how do I apply a trap to a campaign in a way that doesn't just halt any progress because every minute in every room is like, I'm checking for traps, and every person in your party is like, I'm checking for traps. Yo, there was one trap 2 weeks ago.
It almost kills me. Now I never enter a room without checking it for traps.
Without touching every floor tile first with a broomstick. I walk around there and click every tile on the floor and then click every brick on the wall and then smack every door handle with it just to make sure that nothing's going to go on. So when you get into a dungeon, you're 4 hours in and you've cleared 2 rooms.
But they are trap free, my friend.
They are 100% guaranteed trap free. Short of you spring a trap on a player and then every room for the next 2 sessions has a sign on the door that says definitely not trapped. How do we handle that? I guess we should cover the rules first. You're the rules guy. Tell me the written rules on traps.
Okay, so written rules are you would make a perception check to look for traps.
Mm-hmm.
If you rolled high enough, you would then find a trap. You would then roll an investigation check to see if you could figure out how to disarm the trap.
How it works.
If you rolled high enough on that, you would then roll a Thieves' Tools check to try to disarm the trap. Unless it's a magic trap, in which case you can use an Arcana check to detect or disarm a magic trap.
So you can't disarm a trap at all if you don't have Thieves' Tools.
You could if your DM was willing to let you I've got a hairpin and I will try with that. DC may be a little bit higher, but you could, it's up to the DM. The rules is written. Yeah, you have to make a dexterity Thieves' Tools check to perform the necessary sabotage.
Sabotage.
So that's what it says in the rules. I read that word for word.
I think it also in the rules it says something along the lines of passive perception. If your intention is you're on the lookout for traps, passive perception can be used to detect traps.
Yeah, passive perception can be used to detect whatever the DM wants, but at that point, it's just, does the DM kill me with traps, or does he not kill me with traps, right? Unless you're using a pre-written, in which case all that stuff is set by someone else. But if you're the DM, you're like, I'm going to set this trap to be 1 higher than everyone's passive perception, and then it's worthless.
What about how deadly do you think traps should be?
They have a set scale for that in here.
They do.
Do they?
Yep. They have setbacks, dangerous, and deadly.
Yep, that's them. And they have suggestions on how much damage they do based on a level range.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, there's a chart. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yep. Huh. But I think that traps, the way that I try to do traps is where they make the most sense. Which, duh, right? But
obviously, yeah, but
it's like the line between, do I use traps at all or do I just forget about traps? And sometimes you're like, this NPC, there's no way he would just leave this open and untrapped, so I have to put a trap there of some kind.
Yeah,
because I always think, man, a trap would be sick right here. This is a sick spot for a trap. But maybe it's just the groups I play with. No one even checks for traps until someone almost dies to a trap.
Yeah, it's tough for groups to know, honestly, unless your DM is you're entering this old mansion with this guy who lives here and he's real paranoid. I'd better check for traps then.
Yeah,
but if you're just out in the middle of the jungle walking around, you fell into a pit trap because you didn't look for it. What?
Yeah, there's some leaves on the ground and now you're dead because you fell and got impaled.
Yeah, those hurt because it's there was.
And
obviously, I'm going to
bad,
see did you describe suddenly there's a big pile of leaves in the way? No, because if you describe it that way, then that's obviously a trap.
That's obviously a trap, yeah. And I didn't know that there was actually a chart for the deadliness of traps. I remember running a campaign a couple of years ago where they were looking for something like super valuable. Super valuable. It was the MacGuffin of the campaign, right? And there was I had a mono wire trap that I wanted to use. And like how I don't know if mono wire is in 5e, but it was in older editions. Mono wire is like a filament that will cut anything that it touches. And like I
It's
had
like
him
laser
walk
wire.
up. It's like clear laser wire, almost imperceptible, but if you reach your hand into it, it will cut you with no resistance. And I basically had a player almost have their hand cut off because it was just sitting there and they were like, all right, I grab it. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, it turns out that there's this wire there and you get half your hand cut off.
You didn't look for traps, did you?
I mean, and it was like Indiana Jones style. You're in a dungeon. This thing is in the open. Why didn't you think that there was a trap there? Yeah. But I think that this is like the same problem as like puzzles, right? How do you place these things in a way that doesn't scare your players all the time?
Yeah, the thing with puzzles is you got to have at least one member of the party that's like, yes, I like doing puzzles. Otherwise, otherwise it tends to go poorly.
It's a puzzle trap. Look out.
Oh, no. Roll an investigation check. 21. It's a puzzle trap.
It's a puzzle trap. Jesus Christ. It's one of those gate puzzles where you have to move the little thing, but if you move it to the wrong gate, it blows you up.
Yeah, I don't know what the answer is for that.
I've had a few. I've been trying to think about it all week, and like I cannot come up with a good scenario where like I place a trap and it doesn't ruin everything. It doesn't ruin someone's night. It doesn't ruin the pace of the game. It doesn't like. Do you guys have any suggestions on trap placement? Like, obviously, there's obvious situations like I just described, or like what you described, which is like there's a big wicked treasure that we're going for. It's obviously going to, well, not obviously. It seems obvious, but no one ever like.
Yeah.
In the moment, no one ever thinks about it, and they end up like blowing their leg off. I just like. I've never had a good experience with traps.
I've had the worst experience with traps.
When did you?
I was in one campaign, the first campaign I ever played in, and we were on in-game stuff. Like we were like level 17, and we go into this guy's mansion or whatever, and we're going around, and it's like even the closets have traps on the doors, and like everything was a trap.
Even the traps have traps.
And it was like I was the rogue, so I'm the one checking for traps, and like. It was seriously like I had to roll like 7 times in each room because of traps. We're everywhere. And we have to check everything because we don't know what we're looking for.
There's a trap on the mechanism of this trap. Look out.
I think traps, like, I don't like the scale. Like, I think the deadly ones should be easier to see. And the smaller ones need to be the harder ones because... If you don't find the smaller ones and you take some damage, that's cool in the sense of like, okay, now we have to like, we're not at full strength, but we're a little bit taken down, but we can still keep pushing forward. You get hit by a deadly trap and it's like, okay, we're done for the day.
I'm gonna sleep in this room because I can't leave without fear of dying.
I think that works thematically, but like your BBEG isn't going to be like, well, I'm going to use big traps that are easy to see. And he's like, no, I want the big traps that are going to kill people because that's what I'm doing here.
You like walk into a room and there's a rope stretched across and a giant pendulum blade, and you're like, I don't know if I see anything off in this room.
You walk into the room, there's a big rope and a giant pendulum. I walk into the room.
I walk into the rope. I kick that rope to see what happens. Oh, I'm dead. Dang it, dude.
I ran, I think, just one set of traps for you guys in the first campaign. And that was in Traylor's house, basically. And I don't know if you guys remember that. That was where you guys you walked in and like everyone got stunned for a minute.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was the only traps that I ran, I think.
That one makes sense though. Like he is like a paranoid, like just mega mage,
but
it wasn't a trap that was like it was a trap that screwed us hardcore because we all failed. But it wasn't a trap that was like we stepped on it and we exploded and 3 guys died.
Yeah, he didn't. I mean, he didn't want to make a mess of his house, you know.
Yeah, that's like, but it feels so bad as a player, doesn't it? When something happens like that, no one makes a save. It's like, well, I guess we're just all boned.
Yeah, it doesn't feel great as a DM either. It's like, okay, I want about at least X number of people to not fail this thing, and everyone fails it. And you're like, well, okay, time to go to Plan B.
Yeah, because if you die to a trap, how much does that suck? Right.
Rocks fall, everybody dies.
Yeah.
Game over.
I had a trap. This is gonna, you know what this trap episode is gonna turn into? It's gonna turn into story time. I had a trap. I had a campaign that I was in, and we were in this underwater dungeon where we go down under the sea. There's a dungeon. We're going through it. We pick up the thing, and it's Indiana Jones. Right when we pick it up, everything starts falling apart. Right, like somehow the entire structure is being held up by this trap.
Yeah, the sandbag falls down.
Yeah, okay. So pick up the trap. We're running out. The first room we come through is like a big domed auditorium, and it's collapsing, and water's starting to pour in, and we're gonna drown or get crushed by a rock. We have to keep making rolls to dodge rocks, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the guy holding the bag trips because he doesn't trip. A rock falls on him, and he doesn't die. He doesn't die, but he's pinned under the rock, and like. I think this was the turning point, maybe. Like, I took the bag from him, but didn't try to help him. Because I was like, we're going to die if we don't get out of here. Take the bag, run away. Well, then you have a situation where, like, everyone else tries to save him, and we all get out, and then you're the most practical but biggest dickhead. And
I don't know, but that makes for a really cool like party narrative. Like you're kind of on the outside now.
That's so dependent on the group, though.
That's true.
I felt like they were not super stoked with me for at least a week or 2. That was the campaign where I got a lot of like a lot of the things I did they weren't too happy with, and then I ended up being the villain in the end.
Honestly, though, the way that you described that trap, that sounds like a trap that seems fun in the sense of it created a cool scenario where you guys are having to
actually,
get out of there. That sounds like a fun way to do a trap. Whereas if I'm walking and it's like you fell into a pit, you took 18 D10 worth of damage because you fell on some spikes. Oh, you're dead.
That sucks.
That's like, I didn't even have a chance to do anything.
I didn't even think about it, but yeah, I'm glad I brought that up. That is a good application of a trap, where it is one trap that is affecting everyone at the same time, and it creates like a time trial almost.
Yeah, that's a cool way to do it.
That's a cool way to do a trap.
As far as just like your basic, the doorknob explodes type traps, I think the best way to implement it is to have your one person, preferably a rogue, they are the ones who look out for traps. When you enter a room, they say, "I want to check the room." Say that if they say specifically for traps, say make an investigate. Or actually, if it's a whole room, I would say make a perception check, and then especially if it's like the situation that you were describing, Joe, where everything is you had to make 7 checks for a room. I would say give me 1 perception check, and I would tell them which ones they see, and then they can investigate and use the actual rules as written, investigate that trap to see if they can figure out how to do it. But the key part about being a rogue is that most, not all, but most traps are dex saves. So rogues have the ability to take 0 damage from traps.
Right.
So as long as your rogue is the first person in, you can get that sense of, oh, this is serious without having any potentially no damage.
Well, what happens when you're in a group and there is no rogue?
Then you got a problem.
Okay, yeah. I think I have a minor solution to this, like a character solution to this. You have a party without a rogue. Someone opens a door. Even if you're not a rogue, you could perceive and see a trap, right? If you're in a setting like in Joe's where there's 7 traps all throughout the room that can all be triggered, I feel like the solution is like carry some shrapnel grenades with you. Open the door, look around. Hey guys, this room's full of trap. Toss it in, shut the door. Boom, all the traps go off. Wait for the chaos to settle. Open the door. Hey guys, what's up? All right, all the traps are set off, dude. The room's just annihilated, but at least I'm not gonna die to some, Home Alone style clothing iron face kind of bullshit. I grabbed the doorknob and it was so hot it melted my skin to it, and now I can't hold my weapon or something. An absolutely brutal, like niggling thing. I think that's almost worse than dying. Like if you're gonna cut my hand off and make it to where I'm useless, just kill my character so I can start over. Because I don't want
your cleric with regeneration and just put it back on there.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, just hold it on there, sew it back together. I don't want to spend
hold it on there and go to bed.
Yeah, hold it on there and go to bed.
Just need a long rest with my hand like taped together.
Taped on, yeah. And then at the end of the long rest, it's like, good, it grew back together. I honestly, even traps aside, I think I hate injuries that I have to spend multiple sessions waiting to get fixed.
I think we only find that happening in.
No, that doesn't happen all that often.
Yeah, it rarely ever happens.
Yeah,
and usually it's a quick cure wounds or something.
What you talking about, dude? Poor old mushroom frog in our. He was out for half the campaign, dude.
Yeah, but that mushroom thing wasn't like it made it to where he just had dark sight, right? Well, he looked gross.
I guess most of his problems were self-inflicted, like trying to use barnacle poison on his own face. And
right.
Stuff like that.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, that was on him.
I hope everyone gets to hear that in the recording.
What's that? What?
Oh, you didn't hear it? Good. That's
it.
even better. The glug 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 of my water bottle.
Okay.
Oh man. Go ahead.
You go ahead.
I didn't have anything. Go ahead.
Okay. I wanted to talk a little bit about the different specific things that are in game to deal with traps, such as Dungeon Delver, the feat.
Okay. Yeah.
And how do you think that should sort of play into campaigns?
Okay. Yeah. Hit me up. What's Dungeon Delver?
Dungeon Delver gives you advantage on all perception and investigations made to detect the presence of secret doors, which as a DM you could move
extrapolate
on to traps
that
if you wanted. Yeah. You have advantage on saving throws made to avoid or resist traps. You have resistance to the damage dealt by traps. And traveling at a fast pace doesn't impose the normal -5 penalty to your passive perception score. So that is a feat that I feel is very specific to what kind of campaign you're running, because that's
one of those feats
of a heavy trap campaign that's going to not get you much.
That's one of those feats that I feel like I didn't even know about it, because I probably saw it right when I first read the rules of 5e when it came out, and I thought, well, never using that, and I just moved on. Because like if you're the character who is human level 1, you take a feat, or you take a feat at level 3 when you get a is it level 3 when you get a 4 when you can take a feat, and you go, I'm taking Dungeon Delver. You know how much it sucks to find out that it never comes up one time?
Yeah, it's like
I think what could help in that is in your session 0, if you're like, in this campaign we're gonna have a lot of traps and there's gonna be a lot of like going through dungeons and blah.
I will say that session 0s solve a lot of the problems that I've had over the years, but session 0s also weren't a thing that really happened, I don't think, in a lot of in most D&D campaigns I've ever been in. Well, in all, but actually this one we just did. These 2 we just started are the first campaigns I ever did that had a session where it's like, all right, so here's generally what we're going to be doing. Otherwise,
I think that's a really good thing to do, is to have that, and then
it's absolutely a good thing to
discuss certain things so you can know as characters, like, okay, we have this, we have that cover, we have the cleric cover, we have a healer. That's like, luckily, Trog, he's getting those healer powers because.
Oh yeah, because we knew it was so rough. Yeah,
that was kind of because I had been talking to him about like what class he wanted to run. It's like it doesn't look like anyone's gonna be healer, and he's like, I really want to do this sorcerer, and I was like, okay, and I read his backstory and I was like talking to him about it. He's like, I might do a cleric, and I was like, if you really want to do sorcerer, stick with it. I think your backstory will allow me to give you something that will act out as a cleric. And he was like, okay, cool, I'll do it. And it worked out. So
yeah, and it worked out. But I have had a situation where I had a really cool character concept and I rolled this freaking sick character. And I was like, I'm gonna do all this awesome stuff. It's gonna be sick. I was like, it was for Pathfinder. I was a gnome, so I was not medium sized, I was small. And I was a class that could take a pet. And if you took a specific pet, I had a rock was my pet, the bird. Not like a pet rock from the 80s, but like a rock, the bird.
ROC.
And ROC. I could ride it and fly around and shoot arrows from its back. Now, doesn't that sound like the fucking coolest character ever? So I was hyped to play this, right? After 2 sessions, we didn't leave the inside of a house or dungeon for a year. And so I did nothing. I just stood around. I became a skill monkey who like had the knowledge of everything. But other than that, I did nothing. And that campaign was excruciating for me. Wait, this is turning into story time. I think
a little bit. I got another one of them.
All right, hit me.
The level 2 or second level spell, Find Traps, which allows you to sense the presence of any trap within range that is within line of sight. Trap for the purposes of the spell includes anything that would inflict a sudden or unexpected effect you consider harmful or undesirable, which was specifically intended as such by its creator. So it doesn't count towards just holes that are accidentally in the ground or natural weaknesses in a floor.
Who can take this?
This is clerics, druids, and rangers.
I think if I was a ranger, this is just me, I wouldn't take that. But as a druid or a cleric, sure.
I still don't think I would. Well, as a cleric,
I think as a cleric, yeah. I think
cleric or druid, you can just switch them out every day.
You can just switch them out, so it's fine. Yeah. So
like, hey, we're going into a big dungeon. I'll take Find Traps today.
I'm going to take a nap and take some Find Traps. Yeah. But as a character who can't switch out my spells, that seems like that seems like I'm just throwing away a spell slot for no reason.
Plus the fact that like if you're just in a room, if you're going through multiple rooms, you only have so many spell slots.
That too.
And it's not like it can't detect them in the next room. They have to be in line of sight. So
what level spell is this?
Second.
Oh geez.
And it doesn't last like
it's instantaneous. It's just a blip. You get to see them.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my god.
Yeah, that needs to be
a terrible spell.
Like a 10-minute long spell, like concentration. It lasts 10 minutes.
Either needs to be. I like that.
Yeah. It either needs to be a concentration or it needs to be pared down to where like it gives you hints of where the traps are and it's a cantrip.
Yeah.
It doesn't point them out directly. It goes, there are traps in this room kind of thing. You know, and
I like the concentration of the cantrip. Otherwise, it's just like I cast it. I cast it.
Yeah,
I cast
it.
Yeah. Where it's like, it'd be like detect magic, the same.
That'd be a good alteration.
I think that's how it should be.
Yeah, I like that. That's cool.
Yeah. Okay. So, not that I'm.
There you go. That's a decent workaround if you don't have a rogue. If you have one of those 3 other classes.
Yeah.
Cleric.
Then it's just getting them to not.
You best not be throwing no traps on us, you a-hole, because we don't have any of those things. We have a ranger, I guess.
You do have a ranger.
Yeah,
and you have a sorcerer that can take cleric spells, but he can't switch them out every day.
He can't switch them out. Yeah. I think even with concentration, that's such a brutal spell to take.
It is. If you don't have a cleric or a druid that can, it's like, okay, I don't need this anymore. I can get rid of it. If you don't have that.
There are a lot. And I mean a lot of spells in 5e that are worthless or
like
so like True Strike or so
True
specific.
Strike is just the worst.
The worst. It's like I'm giving up this thing, and I'm giving up something else that's better. You know what I mean? I found this with damaging spells when I was playing that sorcerer recently, where it's like you read a spell that's like level 8. And you're like, dang, that spell sounds sick. It does like this fire wall thing and it does all this crazy crap. Isn't that freaking sweet? And then you read it and you go, well, if I upscale Fireball to 8th level, it does on average more damage and hits the same amount of people. So why would I take this spell? That's like, I feel like if they're gonna do a 6E, they need to try to solve some of those problems. Upscaling spells, that's a really cool concept. But if upscaling a spell ruins every other spell, like there is a lot of memes around, we're totally off traps, but that's fine. If you're upscaling a spell, there has to be some kind of drawback or something, because Fireball negates almost every damaging spell afterwards.
Yeah.
And there is like a meme around like, oh, you're the guy who spams Fireball, but it's like, it's because it works.
Yeah, because it even negates some single target damage.
Yep.
Like,
why would I waste this, why would I waste this high level spell slot to do 45 damage when I could use a Fireball and hit all of them for 30 damage? That doesn't even, like, the math doesn't even work out. Even Disintegrate, really. Like, unless you're fighting one singular guy, Disintegrate is a hard sell.
Yep.
Unless you think that it is going to hit the final blow, you know what I mean? Where there's no question, oh, he doesn't have a lot of health left. If I Disintegrate, we don't have to, there's no way he's coming back, right?
Yeah.
But other than that, like, even one dude,
I think there's ways, unless you're like Ray's wizard, where he can
keep
it from hitting your teammates. If as a DM you know that they only throw fireballs, so just always have the enemies on top of people.
Well, there's usually at least a round, and especially because how our groups personally do like initiative, there's always at least one round where you could be like, this is the AoE hotspot right here, baby.
Yep. At some point there is likely there will be some sort of disagreement there between our house rule and some of the other rules, and that's going to come around whenever there's some, like like monks have the stunning strike that lasts until the beginning of their next turn. So the way we do it, you could be like, the monk goes first this round, and then he goes last next round, and everyone gets a whole extra round. So when that comes around, I'm like, no, you gotta go first again.
We don't have a monk in our group, though, do we?
Yeah, or just make it to where at the top of the round when everyone goes, it wears off because it's at the top.
That's what it would have to be.
Can go.
Yeah, but then if someone jumped in front of him, then they don't get any shots on him, right? So
that's just rough.
It's it's just a thing that we're gonna have to discuss when and if it comes around.
I'm sure that just depends on whether anybody.
Or you just have everybody keep track, like. Or he was stunned for this moment, so if you go before and you haven't gone with the advantage,
that's absolutely how it would get done. It's just keeping track of everything is sometimes tough.
Or you're just a major dickhead and you just hit your teammates with your AoE.
You could do that.
Well, I mean, totally you can on do Monday.
Thing. Yeah. You could just be like, "Oh, that guy's almost dead," but I could deal I could deal a 5 extra damage.
I can't say anything. I took out a teamate before.
Oh yeah, you killed Francisco. That was fantastic. For reference, we were in a campaign and we went into a basement and we found a portal to hell and we closed it, but we had to fight some demons, and one of our guys went out on the stairs and Joe forgot about it. And shot an ice knife over there and killed him.
I hit the bad guy, but the explosion hurt my teammate.
And killed him.
Tell me, did having the game be, because I don't know what you guys were using. Were you using minis at that time?
No, we were in.
Yeah, we were.
We were in minis that time.
We were at Michael's house.
Yeah. We were in person playing minis.
Based on what you were that experience versus Tailspire, do you think that would happen in Tailspire, where we can
honestly,
pop out your thing?
I think at that point, most of the time we were just doing theater of the mind.
We kind of flipped.
So I don't think we were using minis. That's why I must have forgotten, because I would have saw his mini.
We used
if he was sitting right
minis.
There.
Yeah, we use bare minimum minis. Sometimes we use more. Sometimes we use less. Sometimes just theater of the mind. But
yeah, I mean, I feel like that's something that doesn't happen as much when you have, especially with Tailspire, where you can like literally throw out your bubble.
Yeah,
like, okay, this is everything it hits.
When it's not your turn, you can plan out what you think you can do. Yeah, it's still funny though. Like it happened and it was funny.
Oh yeah.
It was absolutely like,
especially because I was like, all right, I'm doing it, and I threw it, and he was like, all right, Francisco, make the save, and I was like, wait, what?
But to be fair, that's a more realistic scenario, right? You're in a room fighting for your life. Your friend goes down on the stairs, and you have to kill this thing before you get killed. You could potentially shoot something that hits your teammate without you knowing it.
You could,
and that kind of element goes away when you have, like, you know, in reality, 10 minutes to plan out your turn or whatever, you know what I mean? Because you're just sitting there staring at the screen waiting for everyone to do their thing, and you're like, all right, here's the 5 things I could do. It's like you're an anime protagonist and the world moves in slow motion, and you're like planning out your every move because you can see everything that happens, when in reality the rounds are supposed to be, what, 6 seconds?
Yep. 6-second round, which, I mean, on the one hand, that's very cool story-wise and like moment-wise, but on the other hand, you're potentially ending someone else's fun on accident. So
it was like
it
was more funny not because he died. It was more funny because there was a big reveal going to happen, like, later that night or in the next session about his backstory. That we found out about later, which he was like,
what's really funny too is the same thing happened to my character, my first character in that campaign. Whenever he died, Michael was like, man, y'all were about to go to the Feywilds, and that's where you're from, and you were gonna run into everybody. I was like,
that happened like 3 times in that campaign.
Stop killing us then.
Stop killing us. A lot of the deaths were totally, like, made sense, at least. Like, we didn't get dicked. We just like, it happened, you know. Except for our Dragonborn, right? He
could still be alive. He got taken in a slave ship.
No. He can't be alive. He was fully dead, remember?
Huh?
He died the same time you died. Underground in that cave.
He wasn't underground in the cave. He was in prison.
He was.
He got taken off in a boat.
I know, but
I wasn't there for that.
Were you not there? His new character joined our party, and then when we got down to the cave, his old character was enslaved by the new enemy down in the cave, and I blew up the entire cave, killing everyone.
There you go.
It's a trap.
Hey, I will say, you talk about a good use of a trap. That blanket was a great use of a trap.
That wasn't even a trap. We
unleashed hell on the entire world because of
that blanket. Ruined everything. That's just an instance of like a good world-breaking item. I think what I did, like, we already kind of were ruining things by using it, and then we lost it. And then when I found it again, I jumped in it and pulled it in on itself. And it blew up the cave that we were, that I wasn't in it anymore. I was somewhere else. But that's not why you died, Joe. You died of something else, right?
No, I died before we went in there.
Yeah.
Remember, there was like a whole army, and I kind of was like, all right, I'll get him to come this way. You guys go.
Oh, yeah, and I transformed into one of them and kind of like walked in real stiff. Ah, man, dude. Traps and Storytime. That's the name of this episode, baby.
Traps and Storytime.
Stories about traps. I honestly thought about it all week. I don't have a ton to say about traps, other than like my experience of traps. They've never really added to a narrative in like a nice way, I don't feel like.
I think the times that they add to the narrative is if it's a big, like, colossal thing. Like, okay, you grab the stone from the altar. Now the whole cave's coming down.
You Indiana Jones it.
It's hard to, like, oh, you stepped on a pressure plate and some spears flew out of the wall. Oh, you died? Sorry.
Now you're dead. Yep.
Rough. Oh, I did use traps one other time with you guys in campaign 1. When
was that the puzzle room?
No, when Midnight died, saving
me,
Joe's character. Yeah,
there
in the dream.
Yeah,
he died. I don't remember.
And that's another, I think, that could be a really cool use for traps to surprise the party, is if you introduce NPCs that are with them, and to make it have a little bit more impact, they're the ones who step on the trap and die. Yeah. That way you're like, oh no, we lost them.
I don't.
Now we have to be careful.
Yeah, I don't want to sacrifice a PC to a trap.
Yeah, that's essentially what happened because Beak went in as like a tiny bug or something that didn't set off the trap because he was too light.
Yeah.
And then Beak started to get in trouble, and Seraph popped his wings open, but then said, "I'm sprinting in there," and I was like, "Okay." And then I rolled for midnight, and he saw the trap and stepped out in front of him
and ate it. What a hero!
Yep.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Now it's like
hero.
Midnight will be remembered.
We make a plaque for him, even though it wasn't real.
Yep. Then you woke up and saw him, and it was like he's still alive.
He's still alive. Yeah. God damn.
Or like, I think cool traps are like you hit something, and now the room's filling with some toxic gas. Figure out how to get it to stop or get out of there.
What about trapping?
I think those are cool traps.
Yeah,
what about
non-instantaneous traps?
Non-instantaneous traps. Yeah, somewhere where you have
that's
a time
the worst.
To
like, yeah, like you step into a pit, dead. Oh, great! I didn't have any.
I step on a pressure plate
to survive that, to get through that.
What about trapping an enemy? Like you have skeletons that are trapped when you hit them.
What do you mean?
Like you have a necromancer, your big bad, right? And you're going to his lair and there's skeletons. That's pretty average. A skeleton or a zombie or whatever.
Sure.
But they're trapped to like corpse explode when they die or to do a specific thing when you die. Do they have that trapped?
Yeah, well,
enemies?
it's not. I guess it's not really traps. It's more of like I hit this thing and it's on fire, so every time I hit it, I take fire damage. Or there is things where they like explode when you kill them.
Yeah, there's have like abilities that do that. I guess you could just incorporate it into that as a trap, but there's no real way to disarm those. So
sure there is, right? So you have to have someone grapple him, and then your rogue can come over and disarm the trap while it's grappled. Oh man, that sounds kind of cool, right? Like you have to have the guy grapple and pin the enemy, and then your rogue can come up and be like, "The trap's in his stomach." I was gonna say anus, but it's in his stomach, and you have to like cut his stomach open and disarm the trap while it's still alive, so that it doesn't blow up and kill you all or something. That would be fantastic, dude.
That would be a pretty cool way.
That's pretty cool. That's a cool trap thing.
That would be ridiculous. Like there would be so many like ability checks in a short amount of time, and they would almost always fail because it is because you just like cut through like a stomach apparently to get in.
Or
there.
like
you
cut
through the stomach, but you accidentally hit the trap.
Yeah. But if it's a skeleton, there's nothing to cut through, right? You just have to like.
Oh, so yeah, but then it's visible, which means the disarming it is a little higher DC. So it's like
you gotta like
someone's gonna see this trap. I gotta make it not so easy to disarm.
That's like something that you could do that was unique to like your group. If you have a rogue, if you have a guy who grapples, like that's a cool way to make use of those mechanics that isn't just like nothing.
Yep.
Situational
creative use of game mechanics.
Creative use of game mechanics for your party. That's what, man, traps are just balls. I think that's the conclusion of this episode. Don't use traps. They suck. Use traps only if it's like a very specific situation. Otherwise, you're just screwing everyone over.
It's either that or just throw in like the
simple
small
trap.
ones, the simple.
I've never heard anyone I've ever met who likes D&D, plays D&D, tell me a good story about a trap, unless it's a funny story where someone gets their head blown off.
I like the idea of having a trap be a small amount of damage, but some kind of condition. Like you take 1d4 piercing damage, but you're poisoned for 2 hours.
Yeah,
okay.
I like that. Or like you got hit by this poison dart. Now you can shake it off, but you're exhausted.
If it's a timed mechanic, I think that's a good thing. If it's a timed mechanic, awesome. If I get poisoned and I'm in the middle of a dungeon and the only way to get rid of it is restoration or whatever, you know what I mean? And nobody in the group can cast it, I don't want to then have to spend the rest of the dungeon being half as good as I was a second ago.
Well, that's the compromise for being like not dead, right?
Right.
You stepped on a trap.
Just kill me then.
That's where I like that. Like, there's times where that needs to happen, where you need to be not full blast. It might suck for the character, but that adds to the story and that adds to like the struggle.
But here, you want to have your characters not be full blast all the time. What we're doing in Monday is a great example of how to make your characters not be full blast all the time, which is like a gauntlet. You're not suffering from a condition. You're just running out of things to do because you can't get in a long rest. That raises tension in fights. Like, I've used basically everything at this point. The only thing I can get back is short rest stuff. I can't get back anything major. Our spellcasters, same thing. So we're in a situation now.
But I can't get any hit points back now.
But we're in a situation now where, like, the gauntlet of not being able to get a long rest and having to fight all the time is wearing the characters down. And that, I feel like, is a more natural thing. Not more natural, just a better way to impose, like, a strain on the party that makes it interesting, as opposed to...
I think there's a way to do it with traps, though. Like, you're like... That's like...
Yeah.
You're going into this wizard's house that's been, like, causing issues and stuff. He probably has some magic traps or something, and a trap goes off and it makes you exhausted, or it makes you have some sort of a disability, and it's...
I feel like the way to do it is time gated. Fills the room with gas. You're poisoned for X amount of hours. You're exhausted for X amount of hours. Your hand is paralyzed for 45 minutes.
But that's how you get those. I'm in a slog. I'm struggling without it being a 3-week endeavor. It's a day. You're only going here for this to kill this wizard for a day. But
I suppose,
to make it to where it's gonna be rough and difficult, you have these traps that like mess you up, and
they pop out and they give you poison ivy. No.
Right.
No. Rough, dude. Like, it doesn't...
Your cleric casts prednisone.
It doesn't hinder you completely, but man, it sucks.
Yes, that's the point. That's D&D.
That's the point. Yeah. I want to make it... I want to... If traps get used, I think traps need to be used just to make it slightly more difficult, not to kill or maim your characters.
Yeah.
And too many times, I guess the conclusion of all this is I've run into traps too many times that maim a character so bad that it makes the rest of that session
maybe like the big thing is, if you're going to have traps in a place, don't make the first trap the big one. Like, it's like, okay, we're just gonna keep going, dude. And then nobody's aware of it, like nobody's thinking about it, and then you walk in and it's like, boom, 3 guys dead at the beginning of this dungeon. It's like, oh great, we're gonna go rest again, and then we'll come back tomorrow.
You really juke them. You walk in, and the first one pops someone's head like a grape, and then all the other ones just like scratch you a little bit.
Yeah, the big gripe I have about traps is I feel like they are an encounter that is decided by one player.
Yes, it's not a group effort. Traps. It's like, hey guys, who's got the thieves' tools? Get up here.
Yeah. So whereas, like, say you're going through a dungeon that's filled with traps versus going through a jungle that is filled with animals that you got to fight. Yeah. The animals that you got to fight, everybody has something that they contribute to that. If you're going through just a trap-filled dungeon, there's usually one person that succeeds or fails for the entire group, and that takes away some player agency, I feel.
But that's the same way with like survival checks and things like that, though, isn't it?
It is.
Like what we're doing with the maps and stuff in your campaign, where it's like most of us don't have good enough survival checks to actually read a map. So
that's true, but like that doesn't.
It doesn't take a lot of time.
Survival check doesn't kill you, right?
Yeah.
Whereas a bad trap check can literally kill your character.
Yeah, that's true. And it unevenly puts one character in an extraordinary amount of risk, even if they don't want to do it.
Yeah. Yep. Which is why you got to put a rogue in there, so they can at least dodge some of the damage. Usually, some traps are not dex based, but a lot of them are.
Magic traps, dude. Those are the balls.
Yeah, that's what Trailer used.
We've been mainly talking about like physical traps, but a magic trap is almost worse. Like if you don't have a spellcaster in your group, you just
magic traps, man. Yeah, that's the thing with Traylor. We're dead. Like we lost.
That was it. Yeah, he could have just walked in there and been like, "All right, guys, slit their throats. I'm done with this."
Yeah, we lost.
Take them downstairs and slit their throat, and then like toss them in the pile. You know what I'm saying? And that would have been the end of the campaign.
That was when you guys went in there. You actually did detect, because I told you what was going to be happening. Like, you were these students, right? Or no, this is before that. This is before the student thing. You guys were going in there, and I was like, "This is a big bad guy. It's going to be rough in there." And you guys went in there, and like, I think someone detected magic and was like, "Yeah, the floor is completely lit up." And I think Ray was able to dispel magic on a couple of them, so you guys were able to get a little bit across the room. But then Traylor showed up, and one of his layer actions was to trip a trap.
Yeah.
So you guys went in there, and he's like, "Okay, trip a trap," and then all of you guys failed it, and I was like, "Oh well, I guess we're done."
Layer they are going to jail.
But that the plus outcome of that was, I thought that was a one shot that we did after that.
Yeah, it was.
It was a one shot that was incorporated into the main campaign, which I thought was fun.
Yeah, that was fine. That's fine. That also gave us an opportunity to switch characters, right? That was that one? Yeah.
Yep. No one took it, but anyone could have.
Anyone could have. Well, I'm kind of out of things to say about traps, honestly.
All right.
I've story timed the traps. We've workshopped the trapped monsters and the like slow traps. Timed events that traps that affect the whole party
that could be a cool use of traps. Like, you walk into a room thinking you're about to fight the bad guy, and you step in and you get hit with like a slowed spell, so he gets like a opportunity to attack you, and then you can start.
Yeah, party wide traps I think are all right, as long as it's not chopping everyone's head off or something.
Yeah.
Someone stepped on something, all the boulders come down just over each of your heads.
Yeah. Future reference, don't ever use mono wire for anything. It's terrible. Sounded really cool in my head.
I wasn't planning on it. Because I would have thought, if they fail this check, though, they're just going to lose a hand.
I didn't even think about it, dude. I was like, man, mono wire sounds sick, dude. You could just stick it across a door, and someone walks in and chops their own head off.
There you go. You can just kill your party via means that they are likely to not even notice.
Yeah.
Traps.
I love it, dude. Traps. Terrible. Traps are terrible. I should have maybe like watched a bunch of videos on. I wanted to try to not taint my view of traps even more by like watching
why traps are terrible.
Why traps are terrible. Man, dude. Fucking traps, dude. All right, well, this was a less eventful episode than the last one. This is story time with traps, but I think that's fine.
Let's talk about everyone's kind of in agreement that traps have to be used very specifically to be good.
Yeah.
I
thought I'd have more to talk about, but like the more I thought about it, I was like, traps just suck, and that's all there is to it. Don't use traps. Anyone out there, just like be very, very sparing with traps, because all traps do is dick everyone over. No one has a good time with traps.
That's kind of the point, isn't it?
I guess.
That's exactly what traps are supposed to do.
Unless there's a guy in your group who has a trap fetish, in which case, like,
I love finding traps.
I love finding traps, dude. I trained my whole life to disarm traps. Nothing gives me a rush like cutting the blue wire.
That could be a thing. Like, I don't know. You make it more complex to disarm traps, like.
But then
one guy has to like hold this up while the other guy holds this up, and then another guy tries to hold this up.
Make it like a group disarm.
Yeah.
You play a quick mini game of keep talking and nobody explodes.
Yeah. There's instructions on the wall across the room.
Only if you can follow my instructions will you disarm the trap.
It takes how many people are in your group? Divide that by 2, and that's the amount of people that have to disarm the trap. It's an adaptive trap, you see. Oh my God. Over the intercom. Welcome to the trap room, everyone.
Would you like to play a game?
Would you like to play a game? Oh my God.
Talk about a one shot.
Saw trap.
That sounds like a one.
Oh yeah, dude. That does sound like a good one shot. I should write a one shot. A trap one shot. Oh my God.
You're all allowed to take 1 feat. Everyone takes Dungeon Delver.
Dungeon Delver. I don't think I've been in a dungeon in a campaign in a long time. Like a flat, normal ass, like we dungeon delving for multiple sessions.
Yeah, they're kind of hard to integrate unless that is the whole point of the thing. It's not like, oh, you're just in this regular world and then there's this dungeon that no one knows about but you.
Did you ever have you
And
ever heard
there was
of
someone living in it and they totally trapped it.
side note here at the end about dungeons? Have you ever seen the world's largest dungeon module?
I have not.
Oh my god, you should look that thing up. I know that someone wrote it because it came out. I don't know when it came out. 90s, 80s, 90s, early aughts, somewhere in that range. I wasn't playing when it came out, but it's like a tome, dude. This thing is like hundreds of pages long, and it's just a dungeon start to finish. And you get it and you think, well, this is like someone wrote this, but it does, most of it doesn't make any sense. You walk into a 5x5 room and there's 3 minotaurs in it. It's like, what? How did they fit in there?
They were teleported in.
It felt like they were just like, roll some dice. That's the monsters that go in there. It is like, it's unreal how freaking crazy that the world's largest dungeon is. I think that's a 3.5 module. I'll look it up real quick while we're sitting here. You guys talk about something while I'm Googling this.
Have you seen the I guess it was designed by Gygax, the dungeon that was like designed to just win? Because they're almost complaining that like, oh, it's you always win and you're the player. So Gygax made this dungeon that was like, you lose.
That sounds awful, though.
Yeah, it is awful.
Okay. It came out way later than I thought. 2004. It's 800 pages long.
It's a long dungeon.
It is the world's longest dungeon, actually.
I'm going to go 801 pages.
Jesus.
I'm setting the record
to make the new record.
Anyways, maybe we'll do an episode about like old modules that have cool stuff in them. There is tons and tons of cool old modules that had
I don't know
cool ideas.
You'll have to lead that one, and I'll tell you what I think.
Okay. 4E, I think 4E and 3.5. Man, it felt like 5E doesn't come out. They come out with new books every now and then, but 4E, I felt like there was a new book every month. But that's maybe why people didn't like 4E. It was a cash grab.
I thought the gripe was like new books were coming out often, and like many of them had rule augmentations, so you had to buy.
I mean,
that's what I heard. I haven't read it.
I feel like the shift in the D&D community is away from hard rules. You know what I mean? So
yeah, 5e is great for that.
5e is great for that. Honestly, 4e was fine if you were willing to bend the rules a little bit. But if you were a rules lore type who wanted everything to be raw, like rules is written, and you wanted everything to be by the books, it probably was the worst edition ever for you. But 3.5 was also just like, by the end of it, was complicated. It was a complicated to play. But anyways,
they're all complicated in their own ways.
Yeah, right? I mean, 5e is not complicated.
It's pretty complicated.
I feel like
tell that to someone who's never DM'd before and just let them DM and be like, "Whoa, it's pretty complicated."
But
you saying it's as complicated as 3.5, but it's not like Monopoly rules. There's a lot of rules.
But I think for like the player, you could teach someone to play in a day well enough to play in a campaign.
Sure.
And also,
you can teach anyone, because if you know all the rules, then you can just like let them do what they're saying and then use the rules that are there in your head to help describe what's going on.
And even if you're like me and you have multiple weird addition rules that you can't parse anymore because there's too much up there, like it's fine for the DM to lean on a player's knowledge, right?
Yep.
And being willing to like gloss over something like trap rules. You just gloss over the official rules and you come up with something on your own. Next week, what are we talking about next week? You want to talk about the rogue thing? You want to just next week will be a variety episode because the traps thing.
I say we should all come in with our favorite and least favorite magic item.
Oh God, I never look at magic items.
I haven't used that many. Okay,
you can read them and get an idea.
Sure.
I don't think I've used most official magic items. Every magic item in campaigns I play are mostly DM created magic items that fit the theme of the campaign.
Yeah, that's what your fighter is wearing right now is a DM created one.
A created magic item. Yeah. Well, boys. Anyways, it was a fun episode, if not an informative episode.
Traps.
Traps and story time. That's going to be
right.
the name of this episode. So goodbye, everyone. Thank you for listening. Hopefully we'll have a little more rules stuff next week, but maybe not. We'll see. Bye.
Bye.
Yeah. Get out of here, Craig.
Craig's not listening. Craig's not listening. Craig!
I will record you until the end of time.